have a question for you. And that question is, how safe is it for others to walk through the corridor of your mind?
Not Carrie.
One honest person among us. Yeah, what a thought. How safe is it for others to walk through the corridor of your mind? So are you willing to be a safety corridor?
Yes.
You know, out there on the highway, they have the safety corridors and the fines are doubled, right? Well, your blessings are doubled if you are a safety corridor and if it's safe for people to walk through the corridor of your mind. So the human condition that today's message addresses is putting limits on our love, putting conditions on our love. And the spiritual solution, of course, is the opposite of that, which is unconditional love. You know, before I go into the story I want to tell you, I want you to think about what's in it for you to be unconditionally loving, to practice the golden rule. What's in it? What would that do for you if you can imagine that that's how you operated all the time, without exception? So just take a moment to imagine what that would do for you. And then let's have a few of you share. What would that be like? How would your life be different?
Bring me lots of joy.
Bring you lots of joy, absolutely.
Peace.
Peace? Yeah.
I like black widows.
You would like black widow spiders.
Yeah, they would be alive, that's what I'm saying. They would be more alive, black widows.
There would be more alive black widows.
It would change the tone of my political conversations.
Oh, how about that one? It would change the tone of my political conversations. Wow. That's big. That's practical. Anybody else? I got some for you. Well, in psychoimmunology, they have demonstrated that expressing love strengthens the immune system. How's that for what it does for you? And that's because love regenerates and hate destroys. Okay? So what's in it for me and you is our immune system is strengthened. And Pierre Pradervand points out that we choose to follow the golden rule, not just because we have to be moral, right? Somebody's telling us we have to do it, but because it's the ultimate source of our happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. The ultimate source of our happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. And that there is no greater way to think highly of ourselves and others than to love unconditionally. And thinking of others as we want them to think of us will enhance what we talked about with this chakra, the self-worth, the self-confidence, and self-esteem. So there's lots of it. And then this other part in the book that mentioned, he said, when we bless people totally, sincerely, joyfully, the blessings are a shield that protects us from and by deflecting the arrow that was aimed at us. So when another person aims an arrow at us and we bless them, then we are protected by this shield, this invisible shield. Remember Pepsodent commercial? Who's as old as I am? The invisible shield, right? So we have this invisible shield that deflects the arrows when we are in blessing consciousness. So most of the world religions, I'm sure all of us know, teach the golden rule. The words are different, but basically do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Socrates taught it. Unity teaches it. Mainstream Christianity teaches it. as does Islam, Brahmanism, Judaism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, and Zoroastrianism. You know, that's the religion of Zorro, if you didn't know that. Just kidding. Okay. Very good, Brian. Very good. So, Pierre Pradervand says the impact of the golden rule goes even further. And in fact, he says still much further when you apply it not only to your behavior, you know, do to others as you would have them do it to you, but also when you apply it to your thoughts. Because your thoughts form the basis of all your words and deeds. So, I would invite you to all affirm, knowing that we're focusing today on our thoughts. Blessings are thoughts. So I want you to affirm together our affirmation for today, which I don't think we have a slide for, but it's, I think of others as I want them to think of me. Together? I think of others as I want them to think of me. Let's do that one more time. I think of others as I want them to think of me. Wow. Let's do it, right? Let's not just say it, let's do it. Pradervand points out that there are no neutral thoughts. I had never thought about that before, but there are no neutral thoughts. That every thought can contribute to the healing of the planet, the transformation of lives, and the raising of consciousness, using our mission statement to put that in the context of. So every thought can either contribute to those or it can detract from them. I thought, wow, that gives a whole new meaning to that question we ask, what were we thinking, right? What were we thinking? So as long as we're taking the golden rule to a new level, it occurred to me, maybe we should also speak of others exactly as we would like others to speak of us. Big, big spiritual practices, right? Not only do unto others, think of others, and speak of others as we want them to think and speak of us. So the golden rule is a powerful way and a very practical way to practice the gentle art of blessing. So then we go into unconditional love because, again, if we were unconditionally loving everyone, then, you know, I think we would be doing those things, right? We would be speaking and thinking of others as we want them to speak and think of us. We would be doing unto others as we want them to do unto us. So I read something on the internet the other day, and it said, if your actions, but you can say boomer, if your thoughts, words, and actions were boomerangs, and they were to boomerang back to you instantly, would you still act, think, and speak the same way? So just imagine when you're saying something, it coming back to you. Bam, you know, coming back to you. So maybe that can be a visual next time you see a boomerang, or just next time you say something really loving or really hateful. Think about what if it was a boomerang that instantly came back to you. You know, unity is part of a new thought, and sometimes people confuse new thought and new age, and they're not the same. New thought is about having new thoughts, thinking anew. You know, and I remember our matriarch, Helen Lane, many years ago said, I don't know why we call it new thought, it's been around for 100 years. But it's not the movement of new thought that we're focusing on. It's the idea that we can think anew. And you've heard me say it so many times that I'm responsible for my second thought and my first action. And that's true of you as well. We have absolutely no control over thoughts. Anybody who says control your thoughts doesn't know what they're talking about, because thought happens. But we can control the second thought, you know. We can have a second thought and then let that impact our first action. And the idea of unconditional love, and that idea of loving others, is really about acknowledging their divinity. Because no matter who anybody is, has ever been, is now, or ever was, they first and foremost are divine. We are all made in the image and likeness of the divine. We are love at our essence. So what we want to do is get rid of or release anything that would block our expression of the love that we are. And in this day and age, out in the real world out there, they call it the real world with a little r, by the way, not the real world, then, you know, we have that opportunity to be that love and expression no matter how difficult it may be, to really express our divinity. When we say namaste to someone, we're saying the divine in me honors or recognizes, beholds the divine in you. And, you know, sometimes it's really hard to get past that veil of the sacred human, which I also call the veil of something else other than sanctuary. Okay, I'll let you figure that one out. Okay, so when we totally get it, that our authentic self, our real self is love, then it makes it easier for us to bless others unconditionally and continuously. I remember the first time I experienced being unconditionally loving. It may be the only time I've ever been unconditionally loving, but it was when my mother was in the dying process. And I was taking care of her along with the wonderful hospice people in my condo. And it was like all of a sudden I realized there was nothing more I could demand of her. You know, she was on her way out. There was nothing left to demand. And so I just loved her, and I took care of her, and I didn't cook back then, but I did the best I could. And even when she wanted a cigarette and some bourbon, you know, here she is dying of cirrhosis that turned into liver cancer of the liver. I called my soon-to-be my soon-to-be husband, and said, you know, Mama wants some bourbon and cigarettes. Get her Jim Beam and Marlboros, okay? And so he came down from Los Alamos and brought them to her. She took one drag off the cigarette and went, ugh, and put that away. Same thing with the Jim Beam. It didn't taste good, but I gave it to her. I didn't go into my high and mighty, how dare you ask for that when you're dying of liver cancer, you know? I just gave her and provided to her everything I could. And the interesting thing was, I saw a part of me I'd never seen before. And so did she. And my mother had never been a big fan of mine, and vice versa. But I would hear her on the phone talking to her brothers and sisters and to my brother, and she would be telling them how wonderful I was. And it was like the first time I'd ever been affirmed by my mom. So that was, you know, I couldn't give that unconditional love. I mean, I didn't give it in order to receive that, but when I loved her unconditionally, that was my experience. So it's powerful medicine, powerful medicine. So when we can do that, when we can know that behind the material appearances, that we can, that we actually inhabit a universe. This is what Pierre Pradervand says. We inhabit a universe where the mental and spiritual are possibly infinitely more important than we imagine. where people feel and react to our most intimate thoughts, often without either them or us being conscious of it. So have you experienced that? Where, you feel somebody's love or hate. You can feel that energy. I can feel that energy. And other people feel it from us as well. It's just the nature of energy. Adyashanti, for those of you who is a wonderful spiritual teacher, he said, only unconditional love pulls us out of the egoic operating system. Only unconditional love. Because the ego is not capable of unconditional love. In fact, when Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, he says the pain body cannot stomach love. Okay, pretty strong. So that unconditional love pulls us out of the ego. It automatically puts us in our heart. Greg Baer says, real power is the ability to choose to be loving and happy no matter what is going on around you. We have that power. We can choose to be happy no matter what. And Pradervand says that no outside event, encounter, or person can harm us unless we give it the power to. So we're not victims of anybody unless we allow ourselves to be victim. And I think the reason for that is because, as A Course in Miracles says, we give everything all the meaning it has for us. The meaning I give it may be different than the meaning you give it. But we each one give everything and everyone all the meaning it has for us. And then it makes me think of Byron Katie, who does the work. And she said, believing our thoughts is the main cause of suffering. Believing our thoughts is the main cause of suffering. How many of you have ever done any of Byron Katie's work? Tell you, it's powerful stuff. I invite you to go to YouTube or go to her website and watch her work with people. It's incredible when she has them question their beliefs. Is it true? Is it really true? Okay, and then has us turn it around to know that it's our truth that's really coming out. And the other thing that we, is often taught in religion is to separate the person from the act. When Jesus was on the cross and he had a thief on one side and, what was it? They were thief on both sides. I was going to say a thief and a robber. That sounds like the same thing. Okay. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. It's from our ignorance that we do things that are unloving. And so we can love a person and their divinity, even though their humanity may be not to our liking, right? We can look past that. Sometimes I've heard people say it helps to see that person as a child. To imagine when they were 2 or 3 years old, or maybe terrible 2 isn't a good idea. Maybe when they were an infant. And to imagine that there are no evil babies. I don't believe, the seed of the bad seed that Scott Peck and some others talk about, I just don't know that I can buy into that. I just don't believe there are any evil babies. So if you can't behold the love they are in their adulthood, at least think of themselves as babies. The other story I want to share with you is a story that Adyashanti told at a seminar that I attended here in Santa Fe with him a number of years ago. And he said, when there's nothing else you can do, when we're powerless to help someone in their pain, disease, heartache, or the dying process, all we have left is the outreaching of love. a hand on the forehead, a tear down the cheek, a moan. That love is a real gift, a real intimacy of the heart that helps them bear the experience. And Adyashanti suffers occasionally from Bell's palsy. Apparently it's a very debilitating pain. And he told the story of being in a fetal position on the emergency room floor. And no matter how many spiritual practices he had, he still was in excruciating pain. And so the strategies of all his practices failed completely. He was unable to transcend the physical pain. But what he said was his wife Mukti was there, and seeing in Mukti's eyes how much she wanted to help me, that she wasn't panicking. It was just love. And it was giving more than could be imagined. It was an extraordinarily valuable gift. The absolute outreach of love and a simultaneous knowing that even in the midst of all this pain, she was knowing for him that all was well. So, catastrophe and okayness in the same moment. Everything collapsed into spiritual insight. The love in the midst of the collapse was all that was real. So, unconditional love, I had never thought of it that way before. Because how many times when some of you or others who are not here have come to me and there is absolutely nothing I can do, you know, to take away your pain, your condition, whatever it is. But to remember that wanting to, my very wanting to, and holding that space for you of so much wanting for you to be relieved of that pain or whatever, that's an expression of unconditional love. And so I don't have to feel so inadequate, right? Don't we feel inadequate at times like that? But we're not inadequate to love. And so that's what the message is for us. And how do we do that? And we know that first of all, we got to be prayed up in pre-prayer. Right? We have to have our formal times of sitting on the cushion or wherever we sit in meditation, and to know that as we sing some Sundays, our thoughts are prayers, right? Our thoughts are prayers, and to think of others as we want them to think of us. Speak of others as we want them to speak of us. And that will lead us to actions where we will do to others as we want them to do to us. And to the extent we do that, we are a blessing and we are blessed. And let's begin taking that and those ideas into our time of meditation with Tree and Camp.
Close our eyes, take a deep breath. Drop into our bodies. Drop into the body as a vehicle for the light to express itself on this planet. And as we're standing up, I was taught by an elder to be like a flower and glorify the light. Flowers have no mind and no sight. With every moment, they glorify the light. And to go along with that, we can get rid of the thought of separateness, of self. You know, our obsession to identify with ourself and to forget our divine ground from which we spring. It's the best way to have unconditional love and to just get rid of the idea that there is no other. I am you and you are me and we are all us. Walking this earth as children in the family of divinity. So I encourage you with every breath to see the reflection before you of divinity and to go the illusion of separation, and to recognize the illusion for what it is, and to not give in to that, and to love, and to be loved. That's what we're here for. Love your body. It's a vehicle for the divine. Such a blessing to be here on this planet. And the source, the divine ground from which we spring, is so happy to be alive in us through our body.